Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. On behalf of the Primary Stages and ESPA family, I welcome you. A reminder for those of you who are new to us or have been with us and forget who we might be, Primary Stages is an off-Broadway theater company in New York City. ESPA, the Einhorn School of Performing Arts, is the school that's a part of Primary Stages for emerging and established artists in New York. Right now, though, we are reaching people globally and nationally, which is very exciting. So, you know, we're making some lemonade out of these lemons we've been handed and connecting with you virtually in these uncertain, trying times. My name is Kelly Letourneau. I'm the ESPA Student Services Associate. You've probably received an email from me about today's event and other events we have going on right now. But if you have any questions about what Primary Stages and ESPA is offering right now, you can always send me an email. It's kelly@primarystages.org. I am so excited for today's Lunch and Learn. Like, guys, I'm like real excited. I'm going to blush a lot. I'm going to be really red because we are talking with Heidi Armbruster. So Heidi is an actor, writer, curious human, and a New York-based theater artist. She's dedicated to creating new work and discovering new approaches to classical literature and theater. She's a founding member and co-curator of Dorset Theater Festival's Women Artists Writing, a group dedicated to supporting actresses who are writing and cultivating the emergence of diverse theatrical voices. She's developed her work at Primary Stages, Red Caravan, the Playwriting Collective, and as a member of Space on Writers Farm's residence group, the Working Farm, which we talked about Writers Farm with Stephanie Zadrovic last week. So there's a connection. Some of her plays include Mrs. Christie, Murder Girl, Dairyland, Where the Eye Divides. And as an actress, Heidi has an extensive New York and regional theater resume, including Time Stands Still on Broadway, the New York premieres of Sam Hunter's Lewiston Clarkston at Rattlestick, Ann Ziegler's Boy at Keene Company, Tracy Lett's Man from Nebraska at Second Stage, and Teresa Rebeck's Poor Behavior at Primary Stages. Heidi was awarded a Drama League nomination for her work in the Keene Company's revival of Tea and Sympathy. And Heidi has also appeared in film and television. Some of those credits include Poor Behavior, My Man is a Loser, Michael Clayton, Revolutionary Road, The Northern Kingdom, Daredevil, Divorce, Louis, The Blacklist, Blue Buds, 30 Rock, House of Cards, and my personal favorite, because this is one of the shows that I binge religiously, Michelle on Darren Star's TV land hit Younger. So guys, I'm really excited. I hope you're as excited. Bart, thank you for making the suggestion that we should get an actor, and Heidi's also a writer with us to talk about process, really. That's what we're here today to do. Heidi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm at my dad's farm in Lodi, Wisconsin, which accounts for my kind of strange background here. So that's where I am.
It looks like the set of a play.
It
really
does. Well, it kind of is. I mean, I guess that's the other thing too, in terms of like, so much of my work is set in Wisconsin. So it is actually the set of the majority of my work. And it also has like a very true crime vibe, which is, and murder mystery vibe, which is also the other thing that I'm really passionate about. So this feels like really apropos. But when Kelly and I were talking, I was really clear that like I have nothing to sort of lecture about. I have nothing to actually teach. Mostly what I can do is sort of facilitate a conversation about process and evolution. And one of the big things that I sort of want to come back to, that I keep returning to in my career, is this idea of removing shame from the artistic impulse and artistic evolution. And so what I feel like I can offer is a conversation. Like, I would really love to answer questions, and then we'll do a writing prompt at the very end that's sort of centered on some of those core ideas about removing shame from the artistic impulse and the impulse to create. So I don't know, Kelly, I can just sort of talk about who I am.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning. I mean, were you an actor first? Were you a playwright first?
Definitively an actor first. And grew up in Wisconsin, had never met an actor, was studying for my LSAT when I was in graduate school at ACT. Like, I didn't really understand that acting was a thing you could do as a job. And came out of ACT in San Francisco, moved to New York, had an agent and manager that came right out of my showcase, so that felt very lucky. And I started working right away in the regional theater, doing mostly classical work and Shakespeare. And I sort of call that the importance of being earnest epic of my career. I think I did like 3 productions of the importance of being earnest. I just like, and a bunch of Shakespeare. Really liked the text analysis, really liked the text heavy classical work. And so that was sort of the foundation. And I feel like really the place that I learned to act. And then when I turned like in my 30s, I started to sort of match my type. I feel like I've been a 35-year-old since I was an 8-year-old girl. And so once I sort of had that line up with like who I felt like and what I looked like, I started working a little more on television, playing, that's the Crying Moms epic of my career, playing mostly moms on, all of our favorite New York television shows that cried because their child was dead or kidnapped or they couldn't adopt it or whatever. So that was sort of that next part of my career. But there was something also about staying in New York to do and be available for television work that also made me available for new play work. So my career sort of started to shift from that classical work that I was doing in regional theater to being on site in New York City and being able to work with playwrights and new play development. And that has been the thing that I think has really shifted in my career right around that time, is that is the thing that really lights me up as a writer and as an actress, is getting to dig into that new work with writers. I feel really fortunate about that. And honestly, like more workshop reading kind of, like I do more workshops and readings by far than I do of performances. And I've also really found that those 2 muscles are quite different. So we can sort of talk about that if people are curious about my experiences that or share their experiences. And also, when I talk to students, which I recognize I am not right now, I do not have experience talking to other acting professionals, so I'm a little nervous, but I have talked a lot to like college students or like, and I always err on the side of like too much information. So just know that some things are going to come out of my mouth and I am okay. You do not, I am okay sharing these things. You do not have to worry about me, but that maybe there's something in my sharing that will resonate. So the big thing that happened to me when I was 31 is that my mother passed away. And she was really my most important person. And there was something about that sort of blow up at, in my personal life that also sort of shifted my artistic life. And that was the thing that led me to writing. And I think it was just that the world was a totally confusing place. And one of the ways that I organized and investigated that confusion for myself was in my writing. So my writing really stemmed from this very therapeutic, autobiographical place. I started first, I took a class at Primary Stages. And that was the other thing too. Like I had been going back and forth to Wisconsin a lot and trying to be there with my mom and take care of her. And I sort of all of a sudden was in a space where I didn't need to do that anymore. Like I literally had nothing on the calendar. And so I took a 10-week playwriting class at Primary Stages, mostly so that I would have a place to go once a week for an entire semester. And I became a real devotee of those classes too, because in a lot of ways it was less expensive than therapy. Like when you really broke it out.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Twice a week and go to playwriting class once a week. And I was getting 3 therapies for the price of 2.5. So that felt, again, that therapeutic impulse that I think I'm learning as I get older to release some of the shame around that, because that's really what did lead me to creating. So a lot of my early work was just literally transcribing conversations that my brothers and I had had in the wake of, our mother's passing, and nobody will ever see that play. And then the second play that grew out of that was this play Dairyland that I wrote about my dad. And that play was workshopped at Primary Stages at Espadrilles. And that was probably about 5 years out from the actual passing of my mother. So it took me some time to kind of organize around those things and figure out what that is. And then the next phase sort of feels like balancing between that writer actor self. And I realized sort of in thinking about, like, I have made so many mistakes. And if I can offer any of my mistakes for anybody who could learn from them and not have to make them, I think one of the ways that I have balanced doing both things is that I have hid from writing and acting and hid from acting and writing. Like, I have sort of used them to, like, if I, like, for example, I did the play Disgraced at Lincoln Center, and then I found out in the New York Times that I was not going to go to Broadway, and it was truly devastating. But it is also something that happens to every New York actor, and so it felt like a coming of age. But what it did to, like, my internal self was just to, like, it just crumbled. My confidence, I was shitty in auditions. It was a mess. I was a mess. And that was the point at which I decided, like, I will be a playwright. Never again will I, you know, impale myself on the altar of disappointment in the way that you do as an actor. And then I had a similar experience as a playwright where I was like, I am way too seen. This does not feel comfortable. I feel incredibly vulnerable, and I will go hide in some acting. So I think that I have balanced those things in that way, which is maybe not the healthiest, but which has had a, you know, the results of keeping them both in my life for as long as they have been. And then sort of the most recent development was Mary Bacon and I, with the help of Primary Stages and Dina Janis at Dorset Theatre Festival, started this group for specifically actresses who are writing. And there was something also with that kind of curatorial impulse or producerial impulse that has, again, sort of expanded my idea of what an artist is and how I might, you know, be an artistic citizen. So yeah, that's my overview.
I mean, that's amazing. It's interesting, the hiding in the acting, hiding in the writing. I don't know if it's just listening to it. I think that sounds pretty great. I don't know if it's really negative, but who am I to say? I think we can all relate to the feeling of having our calendars cleared. So hearing that your impulse was to go into writing and you found this class it's very comforting. So thank you for sharing that. It was extremely generous. So people sent in some questions, and here I have, do you have any advice for fellow actors transitioning into playwriting?
I mean, I can tell you what's worked for me and what hasn't worked for me.
Yes.
What worked for me was to take a class at Primary Stages. That helped. One of the other places that I've found that has been is one of my favorite places in New York City is the Lark. And I have been worked as an actor there quite a lot. And I've done their Monday night like playwright workshops that Arthur Kopit used to curate and facilitate. And being there as an actor, but being adjacent to playwrights, doing the work felt particularly good to me, sort of filled my well artistically. So it's interesting too, because this is the other thing I've learned as a playwright. Like, I, as a playwright, will take myself to a reading of a play. I, as an actress, would never do such a thing, because my actress brain would be like, bitch, why didn't you cast me? Like, do you know what I mean? It has like a smaller scope. So I was like, why would I sit through 2 hours of something that's not finished? But like, as a playwright, I have a slightly more generous attitude towards work in process. And I'm curious about like, oh, how are they making this happen? And there's something about like letting those two selves live at the same time that has sort of opened me up. Like, my actress self can go to a reading at the Lark and not be like, why didn't you cast me? Do you know what I mean? Or there's no part in here for me. Like, I'm sort of have a larger scope. So that's the thing too. I think just being a writer can open your actor self up to ultimately what are more, you know, going to see plays and reading plays. Obviously that's a pretty clear one. But being around process has felt really good for me. And I found that at Primary Stages and at the Lark. One of the things that I would caution against
Yes.
And I noticed this, like, this feels like, I mean, I'm a baby playwright. Do you know what I mean? I'm a middle-aged woman, but I am an early career playwright, definitively. And so I have gone through that sophomoric thing of where it's like, I am a playwright. I'm a playwright who does playwriting. And so now I'm reading your really shitty SVU script, and I've got a couple suggestions. I would not do that. Don't do that. That is something I learned the hard way. Like, I just had a slightly outsider perspective on the work, like, because I was kind of coming at it, you know, instead of just having this one track where you're like, go in and be the crying mom and be sad about your dead kid, as opposed to like see the whole, you know, or get on set and it's like, oh, can I just offer something here? Or I just had a thought. What if I da da da? It's like, no, that is not my job. So there's been something about sort of graduating to the other side of that has like just relinquished me, especially being on set, to be like, just let the people do their jobs and stay in your lane. I think it is good to cross lanes, but I think like I have found that there are places when it's just not helpful to cross lanes. And I have like stopped myself in auditions to like have conversation with the director about the play, you know, and like, no, just no, that I did wrong.
Well, thank you for that. I need that one because sometimes I just get a little too eager and it comes from a generous place, but stay in your lane.
That's terrible advice. Stay in your lane, like generally really bad advice. But sometimes people just don't know what to do with you when you're like, oh, what do you think about this moment in the play here? Like, can we talk about this? Like, sometimes it just, I've had to learn to
navigate the changing of lanes.
Totally.
So our friend Amy sent in a two-pronged question. Hey, Amy. One, what's your favorite thing about working on new plays? I believe that's as an actor. And then the second part would be, what do you love most about actors when you're writing and developing a new play? So like, what's your favorite part of the new play development process, both as actor and then as writer?
Okay.
I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, this is good. Okay, so the first, what is my favorite thing about the new play development process as an actor? I think it is that, like, you know, if you do the importance of being earnest, the play has been written, and there is that excavation, that detective work that really lights me up. But I think I like the collaboration. So I like being in the room with the director, and that's a space where that eagerness actually does come into play. Do you know what I mean? Where you really can be like, you can have like a what's the word I'm looking for? You guys, I'm having quarantine brain real bad. Like a meta, larger, sort of larger.
Like a discussion about how the play works.
Yeah.
Yeah, a dramaturgical discussion, perhaps.
That dramaturgical eye, that sort of larger outside eye is not, there's a space for that.
Yeah.
Not exclusively, that's not entirely your role as an actor in the room, but doing that sort of investigation and that collaboration with the director and with the writer and with the other actors around a table is my favorite thing in the world. And that sort of ownership that comes from feeling like you've had a hand in helping to sculpt something, that feels really good. However, as a playwright, I will say my favorite thing about actors in the room is when they don't try to act. Like, no acting. Like, just stop acting. Like, I'm like, you're screwing up my play with acting. Why are you acting so hard? Just don't do acting. Like, just, I wrote it the way I want to hear it. The punctuation's there for a reason. Just like follow the map I gave you and stay in your lane. It's not funny. Like, as an actress, I'm like, go outside your lane. And as a playwright, I'm like, just stay where you are. Just don't try to do so much to my play.
It's like, as an actress, I want to make all the choices. Then as a playwright, it's like, just read the words.
Just made all the choices.
Yeah.
And that has been the thing too, where that was really interesting about getting into production with some of the plays too, and really feeling like I thought when I was moving as an actor to a playwright, I somehow had more control, more artistic authority, more ownership. And in finding actually that as a playwright in production, I was relinquishing an enormous amount of control and really giving over to the collaborative experience. Because I think the thing I found totally fascinating about being in production was that all of a sudden you're making a play And there are like literally 100 adult people who are responsible for putting it on stage. Like the designers and the actors and the crew and the marketing people and the house manager, like there are, and because there are 100 adults who do this professionally, there are 100 spaces where your like imagination, your vision changes, shifts. And like the sum of the total is greater. What do you say? How do you say that? The sum, the total is greater than the sum of its parts. Like, I think that
yes.
is what we have faith in when we undertake collaboration, but it is changed, definitively changed from what it looks like in my head or what I thought I was rendering on the page when I like put my imagination into 3 dimensions. Once your imagination is rendered in 3 dimensions, it looks different than it does in your head. And that is both exciting and terrifying. So I thought that that control thing is actually, it shifts, you guys.
Who was that?
Emotional support animal, Martin.
Hello, Martin.
Yeah. Did that answer Amy's question?
I think it definitely did. It answered it for me, so.
Cool. Probably, and then some.
Oh, I mean, the production, that idea of is terrifying and exciting, of relinquishing like the way the play looks, because it has only lived here.
Yeah. That's the nature of collaboration too. Like collaboration. Everybody gets so excited about collaboration, and you sort of forget that the faith that you have that when other people come together, you will realize something larger. And it means generosity of relinquishing your, what you think is right. Not entirely. That's the other thing too, that I am also learning as I move forward. Some mistakes that I have made, don't do what I do, is like I am a very good student who got very good grades. And when I am working in with a director, with a cast, I try to, get a good grade and make everybody happy. And that's sort of my initial impulse. And I've had to learn that, what the balance is between faith and collaboration and, having confidence in the original artistic impulse and knowing that it ultimately is my imagination that I'm trying to render in 3 dimensions, and sort of knowing when and how to navigate those things. You cannot do one or the other. You have to,
So Janine just wrote in, and she has a question in response to this conversation of the actors in your new works. So her question is, does the desire for actors to play what you wrote, make their choices simple, then influence you to be more devoted to what's on the page as an actor of other people's work?
Totally. Okay, there's also this thing, and I think, like, if I were ever going to teach an acting class, I would want to teach a current female playwright scene study, because I would argue that there is a kind of work that is coming out of like C.A. Johnson and Claire Barron and Hallie Pfeiffer and Rachel Bonds, and there's something in common with that work. And it seems different from like Sam Hunter and Rob Askins and Brandon Jacobs Jenkins. Like, I'm making massive generalizations, but I do feel that there is something very particular about these female playwrights. And they do a thing where it is inherently theatrical. It is, again, massive generalizations. Could not be a film. Dance Nation could not be a film. But you have something where like there are extraordinary circumstances. The stakes are life and death, but the dialogue lives in an incredibly conversational space. So how do you marry that playwright's desire for something that feels conversational and feels real with the human desire for like creating stakes and extraordinary circumstances? And I think like that's the balance that is happening a lot in new work that is different from like doing something like Moliere or The Importance of Being Earnest, where you sort of have permission. The language gives you permission to make these very bold and theatrical choices. Like, how do you play stakes and play real human behavior? And I think like that's the piece that actors are trying to, or writers really are trying to score with like punctuation, and you know they're trying to score like you would a piece of music, where so you can have sort of both of those things percolating at the same time. And that's the thing I found too as a writer, is like I really appreciate actors who can do that, who can be full up and who can also deliver it like a person, you know, do it like a human. And I think that's what I mean when I say not acting. So in reality, it's not acting, it's acting so fully and so conversationally. It's actually doing those two kinds of acting simultaneously. It's actually not acting, it's like acting more, but less.
The human experience of the thing, which is, it's like a knife's edge. It's a sweet spot. It's totally a sweet spot.
And it can be achieved, and we all are doing it right now. Like we are living through extraordinary circumstances, and we are, you know, having dialogue and conversation. So like we are all entirely capable of it, as evidenced by, you know, what the rest of our days will look like. But like there's something about an actor who can do that I think is a particularly adept actor for new play development. And it's been really interesting too. Like I did a workshop of Murder Girl in Kansas City. The actors were fantastic. They were great, but they just didn't have that same new play muscle. Like I truly, truly believe 100,000% that New York City is the Roman Empire of new play development, and that there is a muscle that we are building as New York actors who are continually working on new plays that is particularly adept to doing that thing. And it's that like brave, bold choice that's able to do a cold read, you know? And it doesn't necessarily always translate to performance. Like I really do believe those are separate muscles. But congratulations, you're in the Roman Empire.
Thank you. It's good to be here in the Roman Empire. How do you get actors together that you trust to read your work?
With my Facebook friends and my friends.
Your friends? You just call up your friends? Amazing. Amazing.
And I would also suggest too, like I did a play reading on Zoom, and I just called like, you know, Kelly O'Coin and Mary Bacon. Like I do have some really nice friends who are very good at acting. Catherine Kate, who I saw here earlier. But like, you know, so I am lucky in that regard that I can call upon some really excellent friends. But the other thing about really excellent friends is that they know me. And again, going back to that initial impulse of like, the stuff I am writing is autobiographical, is answering questions that I am curious about. So bringing my friends into my work does feel like they're able to sort of support that generosity. I really feel like getting friends on Zoom, getting friends in your living room. I think I was quoted in American Theater Magazine. The one time I've been quoted in American Theater Magazine was like, bake everybody a roast chicken. Like I was going to do this roast chicken reading series. They were like, I like to make my friends like roast chicken and have them read my play. I've roasted chicken like fucking twice in my life. But like, there's something about just having like a dinner party play reading that I think is a nice way to start hearing the play, because it's kind, it's generous, there's a social activity. So if you feel completely overseen and distraught, you can just hide in the chicken and your glass of wine. And it's a nice way to sort of balance the incredibly vulnerable thing that we do, which is to put new work into the world. That is a really good question, actually. Be very picky about who your people are that encounter your play the first time. Get your people. Because it matters less if they're good at acting than it does if they're good at being friends, I think.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, and if you can't make a roast chicken, from personal experience, pizza and wine also works.
Totally. But like, be protective. I've learned that. That's another mistake that I have made. I have put plays into the world, or I've had a crush on a boy and I've like cast him in something. Like I have not been as protective of a nascent play as I could have been. And I have learned from that mistake. Like, you know, I don't know. This is the gesture I feel. like protect it. You are a universe and you deserve to be particular about where you put your work.
What do you think are the qualities of those like specific humans you invite into the room to hear your nascent play? And if you can't name them right now, don't worry about it. This is totally a question that I just want the answer to eventually.
Okay, this is kind of fun. Like, I will say, do you guys know Kelly O'Donnell? Some of you might know Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly O'Donnell, to me, is like, she's like a muse person. And she's like me if I were like smaller and had redder hair and was like a little angrier and like a little more intense. And I'm like, she just feels like she's like an alter ego. So there's something about like, and she's read enough of my work at this point where like she just gets it. And I think what I am always writing about is grief. I am always writing about grief in one way or another. There's always a dead mom or a dead dad like tucked into the worlds of my play. And I've heard Brooke Berman say the same thing. So I'm starting to relinquish some of my shame around the fact that I am just teasing out these stories that are ultimately about grief. But I think Kelly O'Donnell is just one of those people that understands what that is and what the size of that emotional palette is. And I trust her to sort of play the me character because she's like ultimately cooler and sharper and wittier and faster, and she gets like the size of it, and she likes me and I feel safe with her. So I think those are all, I think, people that make you feel safe. And you know, all of this stuff, and particularly in doing the writers group, sort of curating and facilitating that, it's been really interesting to kind of go to a place where you're talking a lot about Liz Lerman, who I'm sure everybody's familiar with, and you're like offering up non-critical feedback. And, you know, you kind of forget that actually that's really important to the beginning of the work. Is you just don't want a whole lot of friends that are like, oh my God, you know what you should do? Like, I've been teaching these 7th graders in Vermont right now over Zoom. And whenever they hear each other's work, and it is always Harry Potter fan fiction, they're like, you know what you should do? You know what would make this so cool is if then this character murdered that character. And like, you know, they're just spinning, and it's fun because they're engaging with each other's ideas, and I've sort of let it go on just to kind of enjoy it. But you're like, oh, actually, as grown-ups, we can exercise a certain amount of impulse control and receive work without a critical response. So I think I'm looking ultimately for people who respect that. I don't want to hear, you know what you should do? You know, it'd be so cool.
How do you handle or solicit? Is that the right word? I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know how I feel about that word. But how do you get feedback after a reading? And how do you handle if somebody's like, you know, it would be so cool?
Oh, yeah. I think I've gotten a lot better at that as I've gone. And, you know, it's really interesting to do a Zoom play of something that feels fragile and nascent and new. And, but to do it via Zoom on a farm by myself, where we got off the phone and I was like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? It just, like, I think sometimes I write something and I'm like, that is the most brilliant thing that has ever been constructed. I am like 6.5 minutes away from a Pulitzer. And like, sometimes I write something and I'm like, that is truly, truly hideous. And I will never, ever make anything again. Like, those poles are, I'm familiar with both of those. And it was really interesting to be in this moment of really extreme isolation and be finished hearing a play and be like, just never again. I will never, ever have anybody read anything that I write again. I am terrible. Why am I doing this? Nobody's holding a gun to my head. This is excruciating. And I think it was interesting to not know where to put that and to just have to process that by myself without the company of like a roast chicken and a glass of wine, or going out for a drink, you know, leave the Lark and go have a drink at Smith's or whatever, to have to process that by myself and just kind of do a little meditation around the idea that, like, you know, this is a process. It's process. Removing the shame from process. Like, if I could have anything on my fucking tombstone, it would be remove shame from the process. We cannot know what we do not know until we know it. And there should be no shame in that. But I don't know. It's an impossible thing to learn. You can't.
It's so hard. It's so hard to go through the world and, like, you know, encounter something, realize you haven't learned the thing yet, and not place a judgment on it. Like, it's the you're in an acting class and you're not getting this specific thing again and again. It's not I'm a bad actor. It's, oh, I haven't learned that thing yet.
Yeah.
Got to keep working on it. And we don't release that shame to give ourselves that permission to just be like, no, I just haven't mastered the thing yet.
Yeah. To stay in beginner's mind, despite the fact that I'm 44 and feel I should have XYZ, and have to just, like, reset and be like, no, I am doing a new thing. I am trying something new in my 40s. I am trying, like, we were talking earlier, like, I'm taking Judy Gold's solo performance class, and I have never ever performed any of my own work before. And it's like, oh, that is a new thing. That is a scary new thing that I am doing. And I don't know how yet. So how do you keep, like, beginner's mind and stay easy with yourself, and also, like, be ambitious about risk taking? I think that's the thing I'm trying to hold simultaneously. Yeah.
A lot of things to hold. But they're all so precious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I could keep going on and on and on, but we have a question here. Do you have any advice on cultivating a writer's group?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Because right now might be, like, the best time for folks to make one.
Yeah, and I have to say, like, our writers group, who normally meets like twice monthly in New York City, has literally been meeting weekly, and then we've been doing 2 additional write-ins. So we're meeting actually 3 times a week, and just on Zoom. And the write-ins are actually, like, we start with a prompt, and we just sit there with each other for 2 hours. So you kind of feel like you're in study hall. You have a little bit of, I think it's easier to make work when there are other people around you making work. And I know, like, Space on Writer Farm has been doing sort of silent meditation, write-in kind of retreat. And there's something I'm finding right now too about making short pieces. Like, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around a great big full-length play or a pilot or whatever, but I'm finding it really helpful to make little stories or little poems or little collaborative exercises with my writers group. So it now feels like, because that combination of, like, introspection, imagination, isolation, that really feels like the building blocks of either insanity or creativity. Like, you can kind of choose to go, and it helps, I think, to have a community around that. So a lot of people want to join our writers group, but Mary Bacon's in charge of telling them no. And she just says, like, because I would be like, yes, but, like, but she says, she has this, like, total response where she's like, just go make your own. Like, truly all we did was, Mary and I were like, gosh, we sort of think it would be cool to be writers. And Mary was like, I have a place in Vermont. Let's go up there and write. And we were like, great. But it, like, now in Zoom, it doesn't even require a place in Vermont. Like, it just requires sort of getting some like-minded human beings together. And I do think, like, I would recommend, based on my mistakes, distributing Liz Lerman's, and I can send that to you guys too.
Yes, that would be great. I'll send it to everyone.
Distributing her guidelines for feedback, because I think sometimes with groups that have, this is one of the things I've learned from making mistakes, with groups that have great intentions, a little bit of structure and a little bit of guidance is really helpful. Some rules keep people safe. So even just using some really easy rules, like Liz Lerman, kind of keeps people on the same page in terms of how to respond and create that kind of safe culture for, you know, it's like a little bird egg. I found a little bird egg in the farm just outside, and I was like, it's like a little egg.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely start your own writers group. And I'll send a Liz Lerman stuff because I think it can be useful to just give some structure.
Please, please, please. And who should we ask to be in our writers group? Should it be just our friends? Should it be
Okay.
people who challenge us? People who think differently?
I think, okay, what's really interesting about this group that we started is all actresses who are writing. And I think also because it's people who have come because we've known them or worked with them, like it tends to be women over 40 who are acting and writing. So that is like a very small specific subset of people, but within that there is incredible diversity. And there's like a woman who's writing a novel and screenplays and somebody who's writing her first play in English, just and a wide range of different kinds of writers. And so that diversity has been really exciting. I do think like people that you trust, people that you have an innate sense of safety around, but also I do think you learn to be a better swimmer if you swim in a pool with better swimmers. Like don't get people around you that are going to make you feel like, oh, Heidi, you're magnificent. Like that makes you feel good. Get some of them, but like also get some people that are like, that you aspire to be. I think that is, I think that's wise.
I love that. I love that. Also, Erica wrote in and says, thank you for reminding us all to keep doing things, scary new things in our 40s.
Yeah, scary new things in your 40s.
That sounds like a great.
I was like all about removing shame from process and scary new things in your 40s.
Well, shall we do a scary new thing and dive into the writing prompt?
Totally. Okay.
I'm so excited.
You guys, I've been giving writing, the only people I've ever given writing prompts to are 7th graders in Vermont. So this is a scary new thing. But I've been thinking a lot about this. I can't remember even if we spoke about this, but so much of my writing and taking this class with Judy Gold has impressed this upon me as well, that like so much of the writing that I've been doing there and that the other people around me are doing is really exploring this therapeutic impulse or using the self as a something that you're mining to do the work. And I think for the longest time, I have thought that that meant either I was a narcissist or that I was a bad writer. And that I was like in an elementary phase of the process. And that to just write your own story was like dangerous or selfish, or it meant that you didn't have an imagination, or it meant that you weren't a real writer because you weren't like making up worlds. But it's been interesting being in this class with her and the other performers in it, that like actually following this therapeutic impulse in an incredibly brave, introspective way where you like protect that impulse, it has led to some like work that definitively is entertainment, but also has this service component. And I do think there's something, and I know this from other people, I know this from work that I've seen, like if you can get to the specificity, you can get to the universal, right? We all understand that the
personal is political or the personal is universal. Yeah.
A story will be universally appealing if it is about the minutia of like milking a cow on my dad's farm and what it smells like and what it looks like. And that feels like a new idea to me. So that's kind of the idea that I wanted to share. So I thought we'll just take a breath. And I'll do a sort of guided thing for like 5 minutes, and then I'll let you go with the assignment. Does that sound right?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so scary new thing. So this is just, I don't know, just take a breath and allow yourself a minute to just honor yourself and your own impulses and your own story. And I'm going to ask you to write 3 sentences. And I want you to think of your most important person, who the person in the world is that you would think is your most important person. A parent, a lover, cat, a child, a guardian angel. And I want you to write 3 sentences, just really simple. I want you to write the first sentence about when you met that person, the first time you encountered that person. And I'll give you a minute. So just quick, off the top of your head. Okay, that was a minute. So the next sentence, sentence number 2 is your most recent interaction with that person. Maybe it was breakfast this morning. Maybe it was a dream last night. Maybe it was a FaceTime, a phone call, a text. Just one sentence about your most recent interaction with your most important person. And again, a minute. Whoa, 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 sorry. That's my timer going off. Okay, that was a minute. Timer. So the third sentence, I just want you to pick a number, 1 through 10. And once you have that number in your head, think of that as years. So if you pick 7, 7 years. If you pick 2, 2 years. So take those years, and I want you to project forward and just write one sentence about where you imagine you and your most important person will be in that number of years from now. So that could be sitting in a bar. Someday we'll be able to go to bars again. Sitting at a theater, doing a play, at a gravesite, on vacation, in a dream, in something that you make. And just take 1 minute to project forward about an interaction between you and your most important person, anywhere between 1 and 10 years from now. And again, I'll give you another minute. Okay, that's a minute. So now you have 3 sentences, and this will be the takeaway. I'll leave you to do this. I want you to write a monologue for yourself. You can put at the top of the page, Amy, Erica, Catherine. This is you speaking as you. Now you can have an actor play that. You can cast yourself as Jennifer Lawrence if you want to. Like if it helps to think of an actor portraying you, but really honor your story and write this for you. And I want you to just choose one of those sentences and expand that story in monologue form. And I would also add, maybe do it quickly. Like maybe just write it in 10 minutes and then be done. Just let yourself write the shitty bad version of this. Like just write the shitty bad thing that comes first. Give yourself 10 minutes and then like you can go back to it tomorrow and make it gorgeous. But for right now, just like write the fucking thing. So just like, ah! So now take this and just like go get it. That's the advice. It's not advice. That's the homework. So all right, you guys, that was a treat. Thank you for having me. And
you are a treat. Oh my goodness. Thank you.
I'll see you all soon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Heidi. Well, everyone, oh my goodness. My face is about to turn so red. She's amazing. So we're gonna take the next 10 minutes and I would love for everyone to write that monologue. Just a reminder, you're choosing one of those sentences and expanding upon that and making the monologue from one of those 3 sentences. So the sentences were the first time you interacted with this most important person, your most recent interaction with this person, and the imagined number of years between 1 to 10 years in the future with this person. So expand upon one of those sentences that you wrote with Heidi and just write the thing. All right, my timer just went off. That's our 10 minutes. So this is the takeaway we're sending you all into the world with. The takeaway is we want you to write another monologue using the second sentence. So another sentence that you wrote with Heidi, make another monologue. And you know what? Even make this monologue you just wrote for 10 minutes, revisit it next week, perhaps. Those are kind of the takeaways. And then our other takeaway is some list making. We want you to make 2 lists. 1, who are the trusted people that you would ask to do a reading of your work? And 2, who are the people that you would want to create a writer's group with? So these people, remember, should be aspirational and people who should challenge you, and not just people who will tell you you're wonderful and amazing, because you are. But the people who will poke you a little bit and get you to do a little better. So that's all we have for you today. And I look forward to having lunch with you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.